Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Thursday edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. I'm Dan Labbe, joined by Mary Kay Cabot and Ashley Bastock. Today, we are going to talk about some Browns players who need to step up in 2023 for this team to get where they want to go. So let's get right to it. We're just going to kind of throw some names out there. Mary Kay, why don't you go first? Who needs to really step up in 2023 for this Browns team?
You know, one of the players I've been thinking about in that category is David Njoku. In watching the Super Bowl and in watching the playoffs, we saw really good performances by guys like George Kittle, Dallas Goedert for the Eagles, of course, Travis Kelce. And you can see how important a really, really good tight end is to these elite quarterbacks. And I think that David has all the talent in the world to be able to step up and produce more than he has. And I think it's time for him to do that. He's getting paid. He's now one of the top 5 paid tight ends in the NFL. He played almost at a Pro Bowl level last year, but now it's time to pick up the production. I think he needs to be a little bit more consistent. I think that he needs to be targeted more. I think that Deshaun Watson needs to take advantage more of what he can do in the red zone and in the end zone. And then when the ball comes to David, he's got to make that spectacular catch on a more consistent basis. So he's someone that I think, really needs to step up and become a genuine, bona fide Pro Bowl tight end in 2023 and make a huge impact.
So, Ashley, I think David Njoku was one of our nominees for Most Improved in our Cleveland Browns awards show a couple weeks ago. But I agree with Mary Kay. I think he still has to level up here. I think there has to be something. There still has to be something more with David, both on, like Mary Kay mentioned, how often he's targeted and how he's used, but also from David's end.
Yeah, and especially like Mary Kay kind of always says, David Njoku in theory should be a kind of guy who can score 8 touchdowns a year. Now, I think this year he had a couple of key things working against him. Number one, he had that ankle injury he was dealing with. He missed some time. I think he kind of battled through that, but it got him out of a groove. And I think early on he had some really nice games and nice plays, including against the Steelers at home, comes to mind first. But I think, too, it's a matter of him playing more with Deshaun Watson, who he only got a chance to play with out there for a handful of games. And Jacoby Brissett used him. But, Jacoby Brissett didn't throw a ton of touchdowns, which we know. So I think that impacted him. I think, knowing that Deshaun Watson has historically used his tight ends and look to his tight ends in the red zone, I think all of those things are working in David's favor, on top of, once again, how young he is. I know we joke, guy still feels like he's 21, even though he's been in the league for going on like 7 years or whatever it is now. So I think all of those things are positives working in his favor. But at some point, I think we're kind of nearing the end of, what can David Njoku be? Like, he is going to have to step up, and it has to be sooner rather than later.
So, Mary Kay, Ashley mentioned the injury, and the first game he missed was the Monday night game against Cincinnati. He missed the next game against Miami. He came back for 2, and then he missed another, the game against Houston. But in those first 7 games, and I've got it pulled up here on Pro Football Reference, he had 34 catches for 418 yards. Now, he only scored 1 touchdown, but they do a per 17 games when you kind of select this. That pace in those first 7 was for 83 catches, 1,015 yards. And then, of course, the touchdown number was not very high. But if he has 83 catches for 1,015 yards, he's not a Pro Bowl alternate. He's just a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, and I think that's the level that he really does need to get to. So I do think you're right. You make a good point. The injury interrupted what was shaping up to be a really, really good season. And we can't forget the fact that his blocking has been tremendous. And you saw that from other tight ends in the NFL. George Kittle's blocking is so good. I mean, we've seen Travis Kelce. These guys also block really, really well. And that's so vitally important in this offense. So that will serve him well. But now it's time. It's time to add that other element to his game. And I think that element in my mind is, scoring the football. It's time to score the football. It's time to get those 8 touchdown catches that I've been talking about for a couple of years. I've always predicated that on having an elite quarterback to be able to get him the ball in those types of situations. Now he's got it. So, some people have held it against me that